Hey everyone, today I have some pretty unfortunate news for you. It turns out that there is yet another Ebola outbreak in the Congo, and this time it's the second largest outbreak in the country's history. Since the Ebola virus was first discovered in the Congo in 1976, there have been 10 Ebola outbreaks, and they seem to be increasing in severity. Consider that the first outbreaks happened in the 70s. And this most recent outbreak is the second largest in the country's history, and the number one largest outbreak happened just a few years ago. The largest Ebola outbreak to date was cleaned up in 2016, after spending 3 years infecting more than 28,000 people. The Ebola infection itself is brutal. It spreads through bodily fluids, like spit and blood, and the symptoms include nausea, diarrhea and vomiting, often with blood, and hemorrhagic fever. Without any medical treatment, the fatality rate is really high. If you do get treatment, Ebola is much more survivable, but the odds are still really scary. I mean, a disease that has a 1% chance to kill you is really scary, and the Ebola virus is a lot worse than that. Tragically, the Congo is not just suffering from persistent Ebola outbreaks. It's also suffering from the fallout of the 1996 Civil War, which included such horrible events as the Rwandan genocide. With the help of UN peacekeepers, the war officially came to an end in 2003, but conflicts never really stopped. Even 6 years after the conflict was formally ended, in 2009, people were still dying at a rate that was estimated at about 45,000 a month. These are like the kind of fatality numbers that you would see in a battle in World War I. And then there was the Kivu conflict, with the M23 rebellion in 2012, and the invasion of Lubumbashi in 2013, and the Ituri conflict, which has been dragging on from 2003 into the present day, 15 years later. To date, this grinding, perpetual conflict has led to millions of deaths, with the highest range estimates claiming 5.4 million people have been killed, with most of these deaths coming from disease and famine caused by the war conditions, and most of these disease and famine deaths are children. This makes the Congolese Civil War one of the longest-running conflicts in the world, comparable to the war in Afghanistan, which is soon to be 18 years old. It's also the most deadly conflict in history, second only to World War II. And now, in the modern day, the political situation in the Congo has collapsed, and since 2016, there's been a surge in violence. The government is now embroiled in a conflict with a powerful warlord who calls himself General Delta. This conflict is terrible for the innocent civilians. If they aren't being deliberately gunned down by government or rebel forces, they're suffering from the collapse of their infrastructure, a lack of food and clean water, and a lack of medicine. When people are turned into refugees and forced from their homes, they're put at a high risk for disease, and in these conditions, Ebola can thrive. This most recent outbreak has already infected 426 people, according to the Congolese Health Ministry. In the North Kivu and Ituri provinces, where rebel groups have been staging their most recent attacks, the Ebola outbreak has taken the lives of 245 people. This is just at the time of recording. By the time you hear this, it's quite likely that the death toll has risen dramatically. It also doesn't help the situation that, because of a lack of formal education combined with traditional African mysticism, many of the people in these rural communities don't trust health officials, and they're resistant to their efforts. All of these factors are precipitating another crisis in the Congo, as this most recent outbreak is not even contained yet. Michelle Geyer is the Senior Director of Emergency Health at the International Rescue Committee, and she said in a statement, quote, "The dynamics of conflict mean a protracted outbreak is likely, and the end is not in sight," unquote.